We've had a lot of reasons to grieve over the last few years, and most of us think that grieving is a negative experience. Well, Shelley Knight is here to share her own experience of how grief is healing and how we can even be positive through that process of grieving. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the big mystery beyond the veil, to that which is creating synchronistic opportunities for every single one of us to learn our lessons on earth in a collaborative way, and teaching us day by day about the new earth that's unfolding in front of us. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love to have these conversations. I really enjoy them for myself personally, and also to share them with you as you're listening out there. It's just nice to know that that this information is helping, and that these conversations are reassuring, and that they're helping you in your life to find your path. And you know that I'm a big believer in the unique thumbprint. I talked about that in the Second Wave book. The thumbprint, the unique thumbprint of life. We each have a unique thumbprint, and I think that's so important to realize that even as we're having collective experiences, we have a unique way of doing that. It's all ours. It's the way the divine is speaking to us, through us, for us. And we can learn from each other, and we can be inspired by each other, and then always remember that your journey is your own. And that's why I like to have people come on the podcast every single week, week after week, and share their own stories of that awakening, of their unique thumbprint journey to discovering the awakening process and who they are and what they're here for. Because sometimes we can learn a little bit from someone else and maybe resonate with what they said and find a little doorway of our own through something that was shared. And so today will be no different. Today I'm excited to welcome Shelley Knight. Welcome, Shelley.
Hello.
Glad to have you here. So Shelley is a positive changes expert, and boy, we could use some help with positive changes right now in the world. We're definitely making changes whether we want to or not, aren't we, Shelley?
Yeah, they're kind of happening anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, they sure are. So Shelley passionately shares her years of clinical, spiritual, and holistic experience in her books, podcast, coaching program, newsletter, and YouTube and social media. She's the author of Positive Changes, a self-kick book. And her new book's coming out this fall. It's called Good Grief, the A to Z approach of modern day grief healing. And she's also the host of the award-winning mental health show Positive Changes, a self-kick podcast. And we're really, as we were talking before the show, we were really talking about how, when we go through big changes in life, that is actually an opportunity for grief to happen, because it doesn't mean like the loss of a person. It doesn't mean the loss of, a relationship necessarily, although that is happening all over the world. But it's also just the loss of a way of life, and things are changing. And so I would love to hear, I'd like to get into that conversation with you, Shelley. And also, I would love to just hear, to start, like, how did you get started in your own acceptance of change and making that positive for yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Kerry. So, as I say, we said off air, was talking about grief. And to me, grief isn't just like the death of a loved one. I think we've all gone through grief in the last 18 months with the pandemic. So we were saying, like, it's loss of health, finances, relationship, dreams, security, safety, just like a normal life as we once knew it. But my grief journey started because my background's actually like 30 years in healthcare. And I was kind of pottering through life as we do, thinking, pottering will do me. But as I started to nurse, I learned that healthcare isn't always about health. There is a lot of death and dying in it, which wasn't quite prepared for in my nursing degree. But as I started to be exposed to loss, death, dying and change in my nursing career, my family did as well. And so, like, my grandparents died, aunties died, a friend took his own life. And then I had my infertility journey. And I think with all of the loss, sort of professionally and personally, I was just always changing. And I always wanted to make those changes worth something, like facing your own mortality. I didn't want that sort of like my dad dying or my auntie dying to be like that woe is me victim, my life is over. And so I'm very passionate about creating the smallest positive change every day, even if it's just like 5 minutes, because I think when I worked at End of Life, it showed me kind of how to live your life, you know, what the regrets are, what the life lessons are. So yeah, I'm a bit feisty about all things positive change rather than just going with the flow.
Yeah, there's a lot of death and dying out there right now with COVID around the world, and how this little virus is affecting people's nervous systems and their bodies, and highlighting any place of, you know, maybe some other factors of comorbidity factors, right? So I think a lot of people are already dying anyway in the world, but now this virus has shown us like how many people die on a regular basis, and it's actually even exaggerated it a little bit because of the stress it places on somebody's health system, their immune system, right? So if you're not already sort of healthy, you could really be impacted by this. I mean, it could kill you. So how do you handle that with your nursing background and all the wisdom that you have? How have you navigated that space with people around you that are losing people, that are, you know, facing that morbidity, that loss of life?
So I run a death cafe here in the UK, and we come together to talk about things like, you know, the fear of dying and things like that. And as you said, COVID, you know, when you speak about death and dying, it was always for like the old people. Like when my grandparents died, it was, we have a saying here, it's a bit of a weird one, but it's oh, they had a good innings, which means, you know, they lived for a long time, they did well. But I think COVID's certainly shown us that even if you're healthy or young, it doesn't guarantee you safety. And so we are like open up to conversations about how do you want to be remembered. Like in my first book, Positive Changes, we get people to write like eulogies, and we do get people to do sort of little exercises like that about how do you want to be remembered? What's your bucket list? Do you have a wish list? Because I think it is really scary. And I've had COVID twice in a year. First time was like a gesture. Didn't really know I had it. I had a sore throat and swollen glands, but then I had long COVID, which was debilitating. Now I've just had COVID again. And I honestly don't know. Maybe Spirit have got an idea what's going on, but it's like I feel so good, you know, and that's like a positive thing that it's kind of knocked out the long COVID. But I think it's a really scary time. Like I can have these conversations about how do you want to be remembered? What is it you really want to achieve in life? You know, let's talk about loss and grief. But I think we can't, you know, with all the positive change words in the world, I think it's still quite a scary time for many. I think there's kind of like two halves, that some people are really scared, you know, because they've lost money, jobs, health, things like that. And then there's this other side where I'm sort of dipping my toe thinking, oh, it's more of a spiritual awakening. Why have I got this lesson? Why have I got this loss of health? So, you know, I think the world's awoken. Some people are really angry and anti this and anti that and judgmental. Then the others are sort of thinking there's more to life. I've lost my job, but what matters? You know, I think it has been an awakening. Whether that's spiritual aggression, it's certainly changed us all.
Well, it's definitely facing our morbidity is something that we avoid, right? I mean,
Yeah.
most people don't think about that. But this opportunity with COVID has put it to the forefront of the conversation, basically for every single person. And, you know, a lot of people are, you know, there's a lot of changes, like you said, to our lifestyle, you know, to how we were living previously. And there was a lot of people who thought, well, let's just get this vaccine and then we can go back to normal. You know, we can go back to doing all the things we were doing before. And then I think that dream is rapidly fading now as people are realizing, oh, the vaccine doesn't guarantee you're not going to get anything. It's not about not getting it. It's not about going back to normal. Like there is no that old normal is no longer the new normal. And I think that's a huge loss that people are facing right now. How do you guide people through that kind of monumental change?
I think it's really hard. I mean, here in the UK, things are always changing. And, you know, whether you're actually making choices in your own life or just being dictated by the government, I think it's so personal. I don't really talk, you know, about like COVID, like with the Death Cafe, it's always about people that have died or dying, how we can support you. And sometimes it might be COVID. But I think here we're so sensitive. Well, I'm quite sensitive about talking about like COVID and things like that. You get the other people that just sort of like, out there, their placards, rioting about it. But I don't know. I think I just go back to nursing, Karen. I just try and listen to people about it, because I just think it's, as you said, like we was told have the vaccine, would be protected. And again, it is like a grief because you believe that and it might not be true, and people are still dying and there are other waves coming in. And we had a threatened lockdown yesterday, but now that's gone again today. Things are still changing. There's still that loss of control, which makes me think we're all still grieving or clinging on for some kind of normal life.
Yeah, so the grieving part is something we all need to go through, right? I mean, that is a normal human experience, to grieve a loss of a way of life, or people in our lives that died, or just this whole culture that we were living in is now no longer the same. It's not going to be the same. It's something new is coming. How did you embrace this second time around with COVID? Because you applied some positive mindsets to it. Obviously, you said you can't smell or taste, right?
No,
and I've had some friends who had the same experience, and like, it's so weird when that happens. But you're still here, and you're looking healthy, and you're able to get out and about and go for long walks in nature and things like that. So tell us about how you approached it.
So I had, as I said, like COVID last September, and it was with the doctor here. When I sort of phoned up, they said like, don't bother doing a COVID test. It doesn't sound very COVID enough. And I was like, okay. And then I deteriorated like over 6 weeks. And I had these glands up, and I was tested. I had like MRIs, CAT scans, blood, everything. And they could not find it. They think it's long COVID. Maybe it was something else. Who knows? But yeah, I got COVID again 11 months after slowly improving. Really badly. My daughter was hospitalized with it. We had it really bad here. 5 of our 6 family members had it. And I've got a bit of a croaky throat, as you might be able to hear. No sense of taste or smell. But I feel so much better than I did like last month before I had it. And I honestly don't know. I mean, like when I go through life challenges, like a loved one dies or financial problems, I'm always sort of like, what is the lesson in this for me? So I've been asking loads, like, what is the lesson for me in having long COVID, in having COVID again? And I don't know if this is the universe like answering, but apart from the croaky throat and everything tasting like plain toast, I feel brilliant. I've gone like hyper alert, Kerry. Like I'm sitting here now and I can see a crow on the roof over there thinking, oh, new beginnings, and I'm seeing like loads of animal spirit signs, insects, colors, butterflies, and yeah, I just feel hyper aware. So I've had the negative side of COVID where it wasn't very COVID, as the doctor said, but felt awful for 11 months, and now I just feel really blessed. Like I used to rehabilitate and try and walk for 10 minutes a day, and it was exhausting, and now I could take the dog for an hour dog walk in the morning. But I was in hospital with my daughter 2 weeks ago, so I don't know what's going on. No wonder we're all grieving, because there's like nothing seems normal, even the positive things. But yeah, it's a very strange time. But I do believe, maybe not now, but in the future, we'll look back and see some really clear lesson for all of us in it.
Yeah, and isn't that the point, that we're not going to necessarily see it in the moment? We're going to see it later, in hindsight. And, 2020 definitely saw a lot of lessons in hindsight with 2020. But, what's interesting is how, what I've noticed is how impatient people are to find quick answers, and to kind of like settle on that as the solution so that everything can get back to normal. And then how those quick answers are proven very quickly not to be the answer within a few months, of them thinking that's the answer. And like you said, like how this is keeping us moving in an unknown state, like we actually don't know what's happening or what's going to happen. And there's a lot of opportunity in that to create positive ideas for yourself, or to create negative projections on the world. So it's like this invitation, right? Like, which one are you going to create? Are you going to, because when we're in the unknown, we can create anything. We can create negative stories or we can create positive stories. And so it's interesting to see, looking out into the world, like what people are choosing to do, or they maybe don't even realize they have a choice.
Yeah, I remember, like, I've lost count which lockdown it was. I think we've had about 4 here in the UK. But around the first or second one, when we was going, we had this big thing. The buzzword was like going back to the new normal. It's all we heard was go back to the new normal. And I remember doing a post on Facebook, just sort of like, what is it that you're rushing back to? Because we all seem to be so desperate to, get back to normal and get back to work and get the kids in school, you know. But what are we rushing back for? And that's why I think there is an awakening. And I've seen people ill. I know people have lost people to COVID. So this is not one size fits all by any means. But I do think there's some spiritual emergence, some awakening going on for many. Obviously, if people lost loved ones, absolutely not. I wouldn't know what the lesson is in that. But I know for myself, if I bring it back to me, then, this loss of health for a year of my life, there's got to be some collateral beauty in there somewhere.
Oh, I like that you said collateral beauty. And I would even expand the lens beyond this lifetime, right? So I was realizing this morning as I was lying in bed, I was like, oh, impatience is tied to like this lifetime. So in this lifetime, I might feel impatient because my time is finite. I only have so much time that might happen, right? Like the women in my family live to 100 ish, so I know I've got about that amount of time unless something takes me out sooner. But it's like, okay, I've got about that much time. So I've always felt this pressure, to like get it done, like do all the stuff I want to do, like before I get too old to travel and I get too old to do all this stuff, like do it now, don't wait. And I always had these people saying, why are you trying to do your art career when your kids are in school? Like you need to do that after they're gone out of the house. And I'm like, I'm not going to wait till after they go out of the house. I need to do my passion now. Like I can't wait because I only have so much time. I've always had this impatience about me. And I think and I was like, what is true patience? I was asking, what is true patience? And I was getting like, well, if I want to have true patience, then I need to look beyond this lifetime and recognize that this is one lifetime in a series of lifetimes. This isn't the only ever lifetime I'm ever going to have. This is like one in a bunch of different lifetimes. And because I actually have physically embodied and remembered other lifetimes, like viscerally remembered other lifetimes that I've had, I have that sort of comfort of knowing like in my body, well, this isn't my only lifetime. Like I have had other lifetimes and I'll have other ones still. Maybe people that haven't had that sense or awareness might really feel impatient because of, or might really feel devastated by death, right? Because they think that's all there is.
Yeah, no, I'm smiling away. Because I'm really impatient, and I have gone to 2 different mediums this year to sort of say, like, one was like a health intuitive, one was a medium, but she sort of answered about health. And I was asking Spirit about, what's the lesson and like how long? And they were saying like, your healing will come, but in spirit time, not Shelley time. And I am really impatient, but I was smiling because I did past life regression. I did clinical hypnotherapy. Then I trained to be a past life regressionist, and we get regressed time and time again. So I've been back in the womb. I've been back to past lives, and I didn't want to come into this current incarnation. I really didn't want to come, and I really fought it. So I kind of like made a little soul contract, like I'll come this time, but I'm not coming back. So that's probably why I'm really impatient, because I'm thinking, this is my last lifetime. Come on, do it all. Because that's apparently I don't have to come back, because to me I'm a bit of a space cadet and I don't feel this is my home. I believe I should be out there in the multiverse somewhere. So it's probably why I'm impatient, because I'm thinking, this is my last one, let's have a blast, let's do it all, let's do author, podcast, mom, teacher, just do it all.
Do it all and get it done. Yeah. There is that sense too. And I feel like for some of us, there's a graduation, it's like, okay, after this one, you're graduating. Like you get to move on to the next level, whatever that is. And I think that, for some, it's interesting because some people have never really felt home here on Earth. And a lot of those people really love my book, The Second Wave, because they see themselves in that book. They're like, yeah, I feel like this planet is strange. Like, why do humans act this way? Like, I came down and I'm like, I know we shouldn't act this way. Why is everyone acting this way? Why don't they know they shouldn't act this way? It's like so weird for people that are not from this planet and not human to come into this incarnation and like be with all of this. But we're actually turning, I feel like this whole time is turning the upside down world right side up.
Yeah.
And and so in that process there's a lot of like people used to the old ways, like clawing into the old reality, like, no, I'm not letting it go. Like, this is all I've ever known, like for lifetimes, and I'm not letting this go. And we're like, no, we're actually, there's something better coming. Like, let's just
Yeah.
but so isn't that true? Like when we let go, usually there's something better on the other side.
Yeah, I had this real clarity last Sunday. So I said, I've had COVID, it hit our family really bad. And I do keep saying, what's the lesson in this? Why is this happening for me? And all things like that. And I've been pottering along, like for the first exposure to COVID, and then certainly with this heavier second one. And there was absolute clarity on stupid o'clock. I can only say it was stupid o'clock on Sunday. I woke up with absolute clarity. Bear in mind, I had a chesty cough, that I had to get things off my chest and let it go. And it must have been 2 a.m. It was, and I was like, okay, try to get back to sleep. And then I woke up and it's like this claircognizance where I just knew, I can't tell you how, but I knew that I was carrying stuff that wasn't mine to carry. And I just knew it after stupid amounts of decades of doing so. And I knew I've been unsubscribing from emails all week. I don't chase friends anymore. Because, we've probably all got those friendship where you always go, hi, how are you? Fine, thanks. That's it. For a few more months, you're chasing again. So I've let those friendships go. In my newsletter this week, I said, if you're never going to buy the book, listen to the podcast, make a positive change, please unsubscribe. It's a one-way communication otherwise. There's family members that I used to keep up the communication so that other people who weren't communicating didn't feel awkward about their relationship. So much rubbish that I've been trying to, not people please, that's not really me, Kerry, but, pacify, like, oh, but they knew me when I had my difficult pregnancy, so I need to keep that friendship. No, you don't, was the message. No, you don't. I need to speak to, my family members, because that family member wouldn't have communication. I thought, let it go. And I tell you what, I know it's croaky now, but my cough stopped within days. I could not make it up if I tried. I made this decision to let go of these family ties that, were literally tied onto my chest and holding me back. Within hours, they started phoning the family members they never phone. The friends I let go of on an intuitive level messaged me, job opportunity came in, and I can't explain it. But I know I woke up with clarity, was told to get stuff off my chest, let people go. And, like money came to me that had been owed to me for ages, like 200 and something pounds came in. It was just, I don't know, miraculous, a miracle, magic, or just everyday life, I guess, if you're like an alchemist. But yeah, it's just beautiful when we let go.
Yeah, I love that you said get things off your chest, because that's one of the first downloads I got about COVID when it all started, was that this was a big clearing of grief out of the lungs for everybody who wasn't able to, through other means, clear that grief, right? So if people had not been maybe aware of that particular grief, or gotten to that place in their grief where they needed to clear, that this was serving humanity to help humanity clear grief out of our lungs so we could go to the next place. So it wasn't a bad thing. I know a lot of people look at this as bad, but I always look at it as medicine, because I don't think we get anything we're not supposed to have. I just don't think it's possible in a benevolent universe to have something happen to you that you didn't agree to at some level, because this is, we have free will as souls, we have sovereignty. And so I don't think that we can have anything happen that we didn't at some level say yes to, including death.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to past life regression, they sort of would take you back to your death point. And when you do your life between life, the reason I chose this incarnation was love and loss. So I was meant to love really deeply, but then lose that love. And that's how I'd spiritually evolve in this life. And if I hadn't done all that past life regression training, or if I hadn't had past life regression myself, you'd be like, no, I didn't. Why would I want to go through that pain? Why would I want to have miscarriage after miscarriage? Why would I want to be without grandparents when I'm getting married? But I did. I've regressed back there, and it was about love and loss. And that's not just in this lifetime. In many lifetimes, I've had love and loss. So I've had like relationships where I've loved deeply, and then they've died in battle. Loved deeply, then they left me because I couldn't have children, And you can't make it up. But yeah, we have these life lessons we sign up for, in this death date and numerology. And, sometimes you can see the beauty. Like my stepdad died suddenly when I was nursing in 2005, New Year's Day. So I hate that whole new year, new me, because, obviously it's got to start new year with my parents, and he died. But when I went on to have children, our eldest was due on my dad's birthday. And you just couldn't make it up. And my mum always said that my dad chose to die on the 1st of the 1st, 05, because he was born on the 4th of the 4th, 40 kind of thing. And he liked his even numbers. She goes, he was never going to die on the 2nd, And so whilst it's hard, especially if we're in it, as like we said earlier, like COVID, we might not see the lessons for years to come. When you're in it, I think there's that mentality of why is this happening to me rather than why is it happening for me. But I think when you start to see the lessons, it's a beautiful thing, And I think, absolutely sit in silence for 10 minutes a day, do yoga, I do all that. But that's not where my deepest growth comes from. It is from, like the death, the loss of health, the loss of loved ones and things like that.
Yeah, and seeing even why somebody might die, like that seems healthier, that shouldn't have died, things like that are also wake-up calls. I mean, my dad died very suddenly 3 years ago. My stepdad, he died very, very suddenly after having a really long health challenge that never manifested. So he kind of had overcome that, and so we all just thought, well, he's just magical, because he's always a magical being. So we're like, well, he's just magical. He's just, nothing can kill this guy. And then, but then what I learned about it was that there were soul agreements. And I just want to put this out there for anybody who has lost somebody that maybe was a mentor to them, or a father or mother. It's like sometimes that is necessary for us to take our next evolution. Like my dad dying was basically my only way I was going to step out and heal the relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
Because my dad wasn't the bridge anymore. So we can see things in different ways. Like maybe there's some lesson there. Maybe that person's departure at a soul level is actually a gift for you to work out the things in your other family relations, that have been unresolved.
Yeah, that's happened in my own life. Like, even when you said your stepdad, so it was my stepdad that died suddenly as well. And I was like, yes, it was just like a connection with you then. I was like, yeah. So my stepdad died suddenly. And then like my aunties died. My auntie was always that good. So my stepdad was just this most amazing, like gorgeous, fabulous, gentle soul. And so he made the relationship with my mum easy, because he was like the lightness to her heaviness, if you will. And then he was gone. But I thought, that's all right, because then I got my auntie. And then she's gone. And so now it's just down to my mum and I. And it's still, like, without those bridges, it is still quite difficult at times. But I totally get what you're saying too. Like, you think, these bridges go, then you're sort of left. And there's another lesson in it, We're always learning.
Yeah, it's for you to become the bridge in that relationship, right? So that was the Love is Fierce book. That was what that was all about, is bridging that, healing the mother wound, because my mom and I always had this inability to communicate with each other. It was like so strange. It's like, where does that come from? It's gone now. Like we transcended it, but only because my dad left. Because if my dad had never left, we wouldn't have done it. Because we would have just kept using him as the bridge, because it was easier than trying to deal with each other. So I feel like I just encourage anybody listening, if you've lost somebody, first of all, my heart goes out, because I know what that feels like. It's terrible to lose somebody you really care about. And I learned on the flip side that there was a purpose. There was a method to the madness of it. There was a purpose to it. And so some of these people that are leaving, they might just, that's their soul agreement. They're not, I just don't believe that anybody leaves that didn't want to go.
It's really hard because I was a chemotherapy nurse for like most of my years in nursing, and I've seen people like resign themselves to it. You know, they have a good death, they get out, you know, they reconnect with those people that they'd sort of they'd wronged or hadn't said they loved or hadn't said they're sorry. But then I've also seen people fighting for that last breath, especially sort of like young mums who, you know, who aren't going to be around for those milestones of them starting school, you know, leaving school and things like that. So I've seen both sides, and it's really strange. It's kind of why I wrote Good Grief, the A to Z approach modern day grief healing, because I've seen it clinically where you can have a good death and people go, you know, and that beautiful timing of death and things like that. But then I've seen people fighting, not wanting to go. But it does come down about being your time to go. And it's really hard. And I do write about it in the book, because you say, well, what about, you know, with suicide, if they choose to go, then what about if they're murdered or die through trauma? And it is really hard and really difficult. But I think we just ultimately, whilst we're still down here grieving for people, I truly believe, and I really hope it's true, that at the end of our days when we transition, we're returning to love. So whilst it feels harsh and horrible here for us left behind, I'd like to think that, you know, I don't want to say they're in a better place, because obviously the place people want them is here on earth with them. But I'd like to think they return to love and they're evolving and moving forward too.
Yeah, and maybe they're doing the life review that so many have described with out of body experiences, you know, going to the other place where they review their life. And I think a lot of them become guides for us in this life, you know, and come back and help us. I know my dad supports me all the time. He's always around supporting me in these broadcasts and everything else, and I can always feel it when he's here. So yeah, it's good.
My dad's here too, and having a little chin wag.
I think if we could just shift our focus, or shift the lens we're looking at things through, we could really see how this time in COVID, this time of so much change, is beneficial for our growth, like as a collective and as individuals. And it's only when we decide to make that positive, to see it through that positive lens, like you're talking about in your books.
Yeah, I say it's always going to be hard, isn't it, for some people? But you know, I think that with the work you do and the work I do, hopefully we can encourage people to be open to other ways of dealing with it. I mean, you know, like I worked in healthcare for years, but even I found COVID really scary. I resigned from nursing when maybe that was spirit, Kerry, now I've said it aloud, but I left nursing in November 2019. Do you know what I mean? And then it started
right
in,
before it all happened.
Yeah, as I said it aloud, hang on, I left in the November, because I remember getting bombarded with the nursing midwifery council, like, you know, I know your license has lapsed, but please come back. And I was like, hell no, you know. But yeah, so that's just real light bulb moment there. But so yeah, I left just before, like 3 months before it was really apparent there was this COVID going on, and I still found it overwhelming, even with shielding and lockdown like we were initially here for our family. But it's like Louise Hay, she used to say, all is well in my world and I am safe. And I just kept repeating it to myself, and that's what I'm saying today. Like, if you really struggle with what we're saying, just find a little tool that works for them, you know. And mine was just this Louise Hay affirmation that all is well in my world and I am safe. You know, turn off the news, play with the kids, cook a nutritious meal. And it's kind of denial stage of grief, I'm sure, but you know, just find what works for you.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, that's an interesting thing you just said. If it was denial state of grief, or if it's just a choice, a conscious choice to accept that there is grief and there are things going on in the world, and you don't need to drown yourself in it by you know, watching it and all day long on the news and disturbing your nervous system. You know, your nervous system's your pathway to health, right? I mean, that's a balanced nervous system is how we stay healthy, and when we have a balanced nervous system, we have higher immunity. But when we bombard ourselves with really stressful things all day long, we can diminish our immunity. We can diminish that balanced nervous system. So I think it's actually a choice of love to not bombard yourself with all that news all day long.
Yeah, and I've been really good, especially since like this second COVID, about protecting myself more. I think it comes from this stupid o'clock like clarity that I had. Like I don't know, I think my intuition's just like kind of gone like on a chart, like through the roof. Because I used to have this obligation, oh, I need to sort of promote the Good Grief book, oh, I need to promote this week's episode. And I sat down my laptop last night, fired up the laptop. It's quite an old laptop, so it took a while. And I sat there and I just had this resistance. I thought, I don't want to be doing this at 8 p.m. at night. So I went out sort of like 6 o'clock tonight instead. And again, it's that letting go, isn't it? This grief that we carry, like, you know, and a lot of shoulds. That's what come up in this clarity at stupid o'clock, like on Sunday. So I was living with my life by a lot of shoulds, like, you know, I should keep up that communication. I should put out that social media. I should promote daily. And I was like, I haven't got the energy or the inclination to do it. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? That letting go of the normal, even if it's like how busy you are, you know, we need to let go of stuff. We are carrying a lot of stuff. And it's only because I lost my health and had limited energy. I used to say I had 5 spoons a day. That's all I've got. So like doing the kids' school run would be one, having a shower would be another spoon, cooking dinner. And I think the lesson for me would be like, probably like energy management, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I think, I need to go to work, and then I have the Shelley Knight branding, and then I have to be a mum. And I don't have that. I had 5 spoons. And so then I had to realize what was really important in life. And it comes down to myself. And I know everyone can say that. They think, oh, you're selfish, Cal. But, you know, it's my life. I need to be healthy in my life. So, yeah, I do away with the business. I do away with the toxic relationships and bring it back to me, my family, and positive things like speaking with you here, you know, sort of like uplifting that like-mindedness. Whatever gets you through, use your energy on that.
Yeah, and place your attention on the things that really uplift you and make you happy and fill your cup. And then the things that drain you, I always take a look at why, you know, because I like to shore up leaks in my bucket. And so I'll go into like, okay, why is that thing leaking, drain? Why am I feeling drained by that? Maybe there's something I need to learn, or a new decision or choice I need to make to put into place that prevents that from happening in the future. And it's not necessarily about the person that didn't cause it, or the thing didn't cause it. It was just something I needed to see.
Yeah, I love that. We have a saying in our house, and it's your love bucket. And so we say to the kids, oh, what filled up your love bucket today? And so it's really nice. I like your thing where you're saying, you know, about the leaking bucket, because I'm quite a visual person, Kerry. So I was thinking, I love that. You know, because if you're positive, you're literally overspilling, but sometimes you just don't fill up, do you? You don't feel fulfilled, I guess. And so I like the leaky bucket. You sort of tap in, like, you know, how's it getting out? Why is it getting out? What's it got my attention for? So I love that. I've got to, review my love bucket.
Yeah, because you can be filling it up all day long, but if it's got a big leak in it, you're like, I'm still filling it. Why is it leak? You know, how come it's not?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I like to look at both sides.
No, I think that's really relatable for the listener as well, because, you know, you do have that day where you just think, like, I'm going to work, I've done all the emails, I've done the school runs, I've cooked the meals, I've bought the food, and you're thinking, hang on, my bucket's still not full, what's wrong? So I love that.
It's looking at that deeper level, and also expectations, right? I mean, I think a lot of the grief right now is letting go of all of our expectations about how we thought life was going to be, right? I mean, let's say there's a lot of people out there who have been working jobs that they didn't really love, but they did it because it brought in money, right? And they have family or whatever, and they've got to pay the bills. And so they just but they kept telling themselves, well, I'm going to retire and then I'm going to get to have fun, right? And then all of a sudden, bam, COVID. Now what? It's like you put yourself on hold your whole life, waiting for the joy, the time to be free. And then this comes along and it puts a monkey wrench in like all of those plans and expectations. And so even with that, I love what you were saying about you take a look at that and say, then how can I do that for myself today? How can I take that lesson and never ever put myself aside again?
Yeah, it's. I mean, one of the things I've seen through like social media and places like that is just like how you've had these millionaires and these top dog people are now working or out of work because they were just living beyond their means, thinking it's forever, and then COVID struck. And I had a gorgeous conversation. I believe things happen for a reason. One of our parcels went missing. We could not find it anywhere, so I had to go out and speak to the postman who was covering someone else. That's probably off of COVID, I don't know. But anyway, there's a gorgeous postman, and I got speaking to him, which I wouldn't normally have done if the parcel hadn't gone missing. And he was one of these people. He was a really successful accountant, but then businesses were folding, so he didn't have anyone to account for. And he was working as a postman. And I just loved that because he said, I get to speak to people all day. I'm out of the office, I'm walking around, I'm speaking to people. But would he have chosen to be a postman over an accountant? Personally, I would, but that's different. That ruins the story. But, he wouldn't have made that choice. He wouldn't have found that joy. So whilst it's hard that we've lost jobs, I resigned from my last job because of my health and things like that. But I've had people like message me as Shelley Knight to say like, they were stuck in a job that they hated, but now they're going back to university because they're not used to having money. They've got used to not having money all of a sudden. You might as well be a student. And we would never have made those changes, and it is like that letting go. And sometimes we don't let go. In fact, I'd probably say like 90% of us don't let go. And so then, well, COVID happens, the tower card in tarot happens, whatever you want to call it, we will get shaken to create that change if we're not making the choices ourselves.
That's right. Big tower card going on right now here on planet Earth. It's all tumbling down, and I'm just trying to stay cozy in my spot because I already did my tower card. So I'm just like, okay, I'll be here for anybody who needs some help.
Yeah, 10 of Wands, bring it on. The happily ever after, the magician, bring it on. But when I do a shuffle and the tower comes out, I think it must have got stuck to my palm. That's not for me. Or the 10 of Swords, that's so getting put back in the deck.
Well, you can't avoid it for too long. It comes up.
No.
It has a purpose. It has a purpose. So that's beautiful. So, okay, so your book is coming out, Good Grief, the A to Z approach of modern day grief healing, coming out in September 24th. And you guys could also find me at some point soon in the future on Shelley's podcast, Positive Changes, a self-kick podcast. And when that happens, I'll put a link in the show notes. So in the meantime, you can check out Shelley's freebie and I'll put a link in there. There's a free chapter from the book. So I will put the link in the show notes so you can get that from Shelley. Anything else you want to share with the listeners about how to get started with you and to go deeper with this journey with you?
Not really. I've got a lovely website, shelleyfknight.com, and over there they can find the podcast, subscribe to the newsletter where I self-kick you every Saturday morning with a tip to try. You can order Good Grief, Positive Changes, or find me on social media. And please do say hello and things like that. Don't just be one of those little strange voyeurs in the background that just watch me and never comment.
Awesome. Engagement. We like engagement.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. Well, so engage, everybody. Please engage. Write a comment on the show. Tell us what you thought about it. If you got something useful, let us know. Wherever you found this, YouTube or iTunes or the website, soulnectar.show, wherever you found us, leave a comment. Give us a review, especially on iTunes and YouTube. Help us to increase our reach, by getting out there more. And we're going to give you kisses now. You ready, Shelley? We're going to, these are COVID, these are COVID free because they're energetic.
Yeah, I'm clear. I'm clear now.
Here we go. Okay. Thanks so much for being on the show, Shelley.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Have a blessed week, everybody. We'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Show. Awaken, awake Nectar Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.